The theory of the Asuras is that the living entities are born of material nature or Prakriti, in touch with the Purusha. This theory also cannot be accepted because both the material nature and the Supreme Personality of Godhead are eternally existing. Neither the material nature nor the Supreme Personality of Godhead can be born. The Supreme Lord is known as Aja, or unborn. Similarly, the material nature is called Aja. Because these terms Aja and Aja mean unborn, both these terms Aja and Aja mean unborn. Because both the material nature and the Supreme Lord are unborn, it is not possible that they can beget the living entities. But it is accepted in the Vedic literature that as water in contact with air sometimes presents innumerable bubbles, so a combination of the material nature and the Supreme Person causes the appearance of the living entities within this material world. As bubbles in the water appear in different shapes, the living entities also appear in the material world in different shapes and conditions, influenced by the modes of material nature. Therefore, it is not improper to conclude that the living entities appearing within this material world in different shapes, such as human beings, demigods, animals, birds, and beasts, all get their respective bodies due to different desires. No one can say when such desires were awakened in them, and therefore it is said, Anadi karma, the cause of such material existence is untraceable. No one knows when material life began, but it is a fact that it does have a point of beginning, because originally every living entity is a spiritual spark. As a spark falling onto the ground from a fire has a beginning, so a living entity's coming to this material world has a beginning, but no one can say when. Even though during the time of dissolution, all the conditioned living entities remain merged within the spiritual existence of the Lord, as if in deep sleep, their original desires to lord it over the material nature do not subside. Again, when there is a cosmic manifestation, they come out to fulfill the same desires, and therefore they appear in different species of life.
Om Jnana Timirandhasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshurmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha.
Can you take off from that? Is it possible? Okay.
What do I have to do? I have to remove this.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Thank you.
This has been the bargain.
Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadhati Shapadantikam Vandehang Shri Guru Shri Jatapadakamalan Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Shahagana Raganatan Vitam Stam Sadivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Shahagana Lalita Sri Vishakhan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kamshana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hori Priye Vanchako Patarubhyascha Kripa Sindhobhyevacha Patitanham Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Jayadvaita Gadadhar Shivas Adi Gaur Bhakta Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. The Asuric philosophy that life comes from matter is rejected. I'm not quite sure what Prabhupada means when he says the theory that the living entities are born of material nature or prakriti in touch with the purusha. Or whether he just means male and female. Otherwise, prakriti, I understand material nature, but which purusha is he talking about? Not quite clear about that. But in any case, material nature is eternally existing, and the living entity is eternally existing. And of course, the personality of God is eternally existing.
The Purusha, the Supreme Lord?
Yeah, but the Asuras, maybe they have some theory like that. I'm just not quite sure what.
Well, the problem is that they're born.
Yeah, I understand I'm just not quite clear what the Purva Paksha is here, what the opposing position is. I see the defect that Prabhupada's pointing out, I just not quite clear what their understanding is. In any case, the living entities are beginningless, so there's no question of created at a certain time by touch of the Purusha or by any other means. The living entities are described as aja, ajo nitya shashvato yam purano in the Bhagavad Gita. They have no beginning and they have no end. So therefore there's no birth of the living entities. But as bubbles sometimes come up by contact with the air, living entities sometimes appear in material forms. That is, they're merged into the material nature, and they take different bodies one after another. A combination of material nature and the Supreme Person causes the appearance of living entities within the material world. Yes, not their birth, but their appearance. The Lord glances over material nature and the living entities appear in different shapes and forms. And it's interesting, the living entities appear in different bodies due to different desires. No one can say when the desires were awakened in them, so it's said anadi karma, their karma is beginningless. Or we mentioned yesterday, Prabhupada said anadi kal se. Since time immemorial, the living entities are struggling with material nature. So the cause of such material existence is untraceable. No one knows when it began, but it's a fact that it does have a point of beginning, because originally every living entity is a spiritual spark. As a spark falling onto the ground from a fire has a beginning, so a living entity coming to this material world has a beginning, but no one can say when. Well, that's quite interesting. There are people, at least it's clear about what Prabhupada is teaching. There may be other acharyas who give a different perspective, or who give a different perspective, but it's clear what Prabhupada's saying. that the living entities at some untraceable time, at some untraceable point, fall from their spiritual nature and come in contact with the material energy. No one knows when material life began, but it's a fact that it does have a point of beginning. Because originally every living entity is a spiritual spark. The living entities coming to this material world has a beginning, but no one can say when. So that's it's a clear statement. Prabhupada didn't have to say that, but he says it. So as far as what Prabhupada's teaching, it's clear. Now how you might reconcile that with other teachings of previous acharyas and so on, that's a project for another day. Except that I would say that the tendency is, we sometimes hear that, well, this isn't really Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy, but Prabhupada is sort of telling a fairy story because no one could really digest the real truth that we've always been in the material nature, and there was never a time when we weren't. That theory is a poor theory. Prabhupada never, he didn't mind telling us that we never went to the moon. He didn't mind telling us so many other things, but he feared to tell us that we're eternally conditioned and there was never a time when we were other than conditioned. That's just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. It's as if someone's trying to make an improbable attempt to rescue Srila Prabhupada from error.
There's one more in that when Prabhupada said that they never went to the moon, many of them have...
Can you use mic, please?
I heard this.
Hare Krishna. That when Prabhupada said that they all never went to the moon, then many of his followers left because they couldn't take it. So he didn't want to speak about the moon. He didn't speak about the moon much after that. And
that's not really true.
or he would say that they might have gone to Rahu and all.
He said that from the beginning. You can read it this way, you can read it that way, but they didn't go to the moon. They may have gone to Rahu, they may have gone here, they may have gone there, it may have been a hoax, but they didn't go to the moon. That Prabhupada didn't change. He didn't change. It's not that even with, regardless of who came, who left, Prabhupada didn't change what he said about the moon. He never changed what he said about anything just because people couldn't take it. There were so many things people couldn't digest, and Prabhupada said it anyway. That wasn't an issue. It just doesn't really fly. It's just historically inaccurate, not consistent with history. That Prabhupada saw that they couldn't. This was too much for them, so I better not say it. I'll say something else. Just not what happened. Speaking as someone who was on the scene, generally speaking, at the time, just not what happened. So that argument fails for lack of historical accuracy. So, of course, there may be different ways of looking at the history, if you can call it that, the untraceable history of the living entity's sojourn in the material world. And there are acharyas who've said something that appears to be incompatible with what Prabhupada said. But my approach to it would be to say that Prabhupada is not just telling a fairy story, but he's giving a deep understanding, which one has to reconcile not by dismissing it, but by appreciating it. And different acharyas may, again, say different things. But it's not just such a quick thing. This one's right, this one's wrong. It requires some maturity to appreciate that spiritual truth can be seen from different angles of vision. Anything else here? Okay. Yes. Hold on, let's let the microphone catch up with you first.
When so many living entities would leave this planet to go to other planets, Vaikuntha or wherever we go, would there be new living entities come into being as well?
If living entities leave here to go to Vaikuntha or whatever, would there be new living entities coming into being to replace them? Or the living entity never comes into being. Najayate mriyate va kadachan nayam bhutva bhavita na antrabhuya ajo nitya shashvatoyam puna. Living entity never comes into being. There are two kinds of entities, temporary and eternal. So the manifestations of the material world are temporary. They have a beginning. Yadanchavantakonte. They have a beginning and an end. But the living entity has no beginning. He's never created. He's never created. Material things are created. But the living entity, the universe, is created. Living entities are never created, so there's no new ones created to replace the old ones. And besides, there are innumerable living entities, so there's no need of issuing replacements in any case.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Mm-hmm. You have a question? You're just holding the microphone. Okay. Yes. Hold on.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, as you are telling that we have rebelled from the Supreme Lord in the Vaikuntha, and in 15th
I was telling what?
That we have rebelled from the Supreme Lord in Vaikuntha, and that's why we are here.
I didn't say that.
Okay.
I could have said that, but what I said was that no one knows when material life began, but as a fact it does have a beginning. Because originally every living entity is a spiritual spark. As the sparks falling onto the ground from a fire has a beginning, so a living entity coming into the material world has a beginning, but no one can say when. That's what I said.
Thank you. So Maharaj, in 15th chapter, like Yad Gatvana Nivartante Tattama Paramam. So if we go there, then Krishna says that
You won't come back.
Yeah, and then now we are discussing this. So doesn't it look like a contradiction? Like,
it's not a problem. If you go, you won't come back. Don't worry. But you can, because you're marginal. It means you always have freedom. So if you want, you can come. But no one wants to.
thank you, Maharaj.
Mm-hmm. There's some place where, in the second canto, where Narad Muni tells Lord Brahma that the whole universe is within your hand, like a walnut. The text says amalaki, but like a walnut or an amla fruit in your palm. For Lord Brahma, he says the whole universe is like that. But we're not Lord Brahma. And certainly we don't understand all the workings of the universe, to say nothing of that which lies beyond the realm of universal time and the powers of our logic and so on. So it's a kind of conceit. We understand everything fully. The truth is subtle. Yes? You have to switch it on, I think.
Hare Krishna. It is said that in order to love, God gave us freedom.
That the Lord gave us freedom. Yeah.
And so we are marginal energy, so therefore we have freedom. But also we hear that in internal energy there is a lot of love, but it seems because they are not marginal, but internal they have no such a choice, but it does not.
I've wondered about that for about 40 years or so. Srila Prabhupada does give the argument that love means that you have freedom, and that therefore you have freedom to love or not love. So that's true of the marginal living entities, but as you point out, in the internal energy proper, there's no marginality. So, but still there's love. So, to my limited mind, that doesn't do wonders for the argument that love implies freedom not to love. But there you have it. Certainly, the on the platform of the Ladini Shakti directly, the Srimati Radharani, the queens, the Lakshmis, there's love, but there's not the fall down propensity. So, if Prabhupada were still here, I might ask him about that. But, yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I often wondered about what is the essential difference between Jiva Shakti and then other. I mean, are Nitya Siddha devotees also Jivas?
Yes. There's two things. There's the living entities. Well, they're the living entities, and then there's the internal potency directly. Ananda Chinmayarasa Pratibhavatabhis. In the Brahma Samhita, it's said that Srimati Radharani is directly a manifestation of the internal potency, or the Ladini aspect of the internal potency. And then she expands herself as the Brajagopis, at least principal Brajagopis, and the queens in Dwarka, as well as the Lakshmis in Vaikuntha. So they're not jivas. Srimati Radharani is not a jiva. Lakshmi Devi is not a jiva. The queens in Dwarka are not jivas. So they belong directly to the internal potency of the Lord. Then we belong to the marginal potency of the Lord. We're not on that same platform. Then among the jivas, some are nitya baddha, some are nitya mukta. What is that? Ksharam aksharam evacha. Kshara sarvani bhutani kutasto kshara uchate. 13th chapter. 13th chapter? 15th chapter. Yeah. Gutastokshara uchate. Among the living entities, there are those who are fallible and infallible, or you can say the conditioned souls and the liberated souls. Where the eternally conditioned souls, and in the spiritual world there are jivas who are eternally liberated souls. Then also in the spiritual world there are those who've come from the material world. Sadhana siddhas, kripa siddhas. They're somehow distinguished from the living entities who never left the spiritual world. But the distinction doesn't seem to be given much importance. If you're in the spiritual world, they don't have a special colony for those who've been promoted. But the distinction is nonetheless recognized.
Okay. Yeah, I was wondering because the difference.
Somehow, are you too far from the microphone? Or?
Sorry, is that better?
Yes.
It seems that the difference between the jivas and the nitya siddhas, or the internal energy living entities, is that we have the tendency to fall.
Yes.
So, having gone back to the spiritual world, and then Krishna says you don't return, so that means we're then devoid of the tendency to fall.
It's still there. I asked that question early on when I was fairly new. I asked it to Ray Rama, who was a senior devotee at that time, and he asked Prabhupada. Because that was my impression, that we're marginal until we're liberated, then we're no longer marginal. This is like 1968 or something. So I thought we're marginal, but then we go back to God and we're not marginal anymore. No, we're always marginal. Srila Prabhupada gave the example that he was a sannyasi, but he could have sex. Capability was there. That one may be a sannyasi, but one could have sex. The capability is there, but one doesn't use it. One doesn't use it. So in a similar way, the living entities in the spiritual world have a fall-down capability, but they don't use it. They don't use it. But still they're marginal.
But you're saying that it's something. So what I want to know is, if when we go back to Godhead, will we be able to fully integrate into the spiritual community there, or will it be something?
Or will you be like? That's why I said it. There's no, as far as I know, there's no colony there. Okay, these are the watch out for these guys. They're kind of.
You can't trust them.
They're marginal. You remain marginal, but because everyone in the spiritual world is on the absolute platform, you're not marginalized.
Good one.
Is that okay?
Yeah, thank you, Raj.
Good.
What percentage from the spiritual world, what percentage of the souls come
here?
Down?
The percentage of the living entities who are in the material world, you can understand, is small. Although Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said you can't count how many there are. He said the conditioned souls in this, he said this one universe is like a mustard seed in a bag of mustard seeds. So even if all the living entities in this one universe were liberated, there'd be so many others. But still they're a small number. the vast number never enter conditioned life. They remain eternally on the liberated platform. Some small number constitute the conditioned souls. I can't give you a percentage, though. We haven't done a head count. Yes.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Maharaj, I came late, so if you've already answered this question, you can just skip it. My question is the eternally liberated, the eternal associates of Krishna, do they have free will? Because I'm under the impression that free will means that that we're marginal. We have the choice between.
Yeah. We did discuss that before you came, but just to restate it, the jivas are there, and then there are the members of the direct internal potency, like Srimati Radharani, the Brajagopis, the queens, the Vaikuntha Lakshmis. They don't belong to the Jiva Shakti. They directly belong to the Ladini aspect of the internal energy. But the jivas, even in the spiritual world, are marginal. Although they're liberated, although they never leave the spiritual world, they still have this fall-down capability, which they don't use. They're still marginal.
But Radharani and the gopis, they're
not part of the marginal potency.
But the free will aspect, so then it's just Krishna's will.
As far as I understand, well, I won't speculate. I never heard Srila Prabhupada say anything about the free will of Srimati Radharani and so on. But she's the energy of Krishna. Krishna has free will. We have free will.
Okay.
I wouldn't expect her to have, but there's just like no question of being, although she has, what would you say, freedom, but she's not weak. The living entities, marginal living entities, are tiny. Being tiny, we can be overwhelmed.
Right.
But the living Srimati Radharani is not tiny.
Right.
She's not, what's the word? Yeah, she's not tiny.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hare Krishna. Maharaj, I've wondered what is the need for the Tatastha Shakti?
What's the need of the Tatastha Shakti?
If everyone was just the internal potency, we would have...
Yeah, it would be so much easier if everyone belonged to the internal potency and there were no marginal potency. One explanation given somewhere by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur is that, of course, need is another thing, but one explanation he gives is that the existence of marginal living entities contributes to the fullness of the personality of Godhead. In other words, he has everything. He has the spiritual world, he has marginal living beings. Everything is there in Krishna. So that's one thing he says about it. This topic is discussed in commentaries on Vedanta Sutra. There's a couple of sutras, I believe, I can't cite them for you, that has sparked much discussion by the Vaishnavacharyas about this topic of why the conditioned souls exist, or why the marginal living entities exist. Ramanujacharya has commented on that. Srila Baladev Vidyabhushan in his Govinda Bhasha comments on that also. In brief, Srila Baladev Vidyabhushan says that Krishna is like a person dancing. And when he dances, when a person dances, his clothes fly this way and that way, and it's not, thinking, now I'm going to have, if she's a girl, now I'm going to have my bracelet fall on the floor, now I'm going to, have the flowers fall from my hair. That happens automatically. So Baladev Vijayabhushan says that Krishna's like a person dancing, and everything manifest is like an expression of his blissful nature. Yes. That of course could be a topic for much more discussion. Yes.
I was thinking just in relation to that, perhaps the reason why the marginal energy exists is the same reason why anything exists, is for Krishna's pleasure. And we see that sometimes Krishna enjoys antagonistic relationships, right? Like killing demons and...
Well, that's a different thing, of course. When people like Jai and Bijai, devotees like Jai and Bijai come to the material world, that's definitely the explanation. Krishna wants to have some fun, so he sends his devotees so that he can fight with them. But that's a special case. You and I are not dedicated to giving pleasure to the Supreme Personality of Godhead here. So I don't know that explanation carries. And again, Baladev's commentary seems to say that it's not purposeful, it's just part of Krishna's existence. Someone's dancing and things are flying in every direction. It's not purposefully, but just as part of the dancing. So Krishna exists, and as part of Krishna, all these other things exist, material nature, the living entities, and so on. I'm sure I'm not doing justice to his explanation, and still less to his thought on these things.
It sounds so random. It just sounds so random.
It sounds completely arbitrary and random and so on. Yes. And it would be helpful to have the text in front of me. I think it would be helpful to have the text in front of me and be able to say exactly what he said. But I think I'm representing it fairly accurately, that's his story. His story doesn't sound respectful. That's his comment on those sutras. He does say more, of course. It's going to be a difficult question to answer for anyone, of course. But that's as far as I know on that. Yes.
The Hladini Shakti does direct marginal Shakti like us.
I'm sorry, you're still not loud enough.
Hladini Shakti, does it direct people like us?
Does the Hladini Shakti direct people like us? If you take shelter of the Hladini Shakti, then yes. Mahatmanas tumam parta daivim prakritim ashrita. Bhajantyananya manaso gyatva bhutanim aviyam. The Hladini Shakti, if you take shelter of the Hladini Shakti, if you take shelter of Srimati Radharani, then you get engaged in devotional service, which is a manifestation of the pleasure potency of the Lord. And then devotional service means you get direction, what to do, and you come under the influence and protection of the internal energy. Essentially, that's the healthy condition of the living entity, that he's under the shelter and protection of the internal energy, and always engaged in devotional service. The ordinary living entity is not under the protection of the internal energy. He's under the protection, as it were, the custody of the external energy. The external energy is the shadow of the Ladini Shakti. Chayeva yasya bhuvanani bibharti durga. The external energy is the shadow of the internal energy. So we're indirectly under Krishna's control, not directly. Okay. Yes?
I was just wondering if you could expand more on the difficult to conceptualize concept of eternally, like we're marginal, but when we're on the liberated platform, that's eternal. And when we're on the material platform, that's eternal. Mm-hmm. And so it's just our consciousness, which eternal are we tapping into? Is that a...
Yeah, we're eternally conditioned, but we can... Prabhupada gave the example, he gave this example in the Vrindavan. I was there. He said, it's just like your hand. If you turn your palm this way, it's in the light. If you turn it that way, it's in the darkness. That's the living entity. He can turn this way, or he can turn that way. So, since an untraceable time, we've been turning this way. But we're asked, Uttishta Jagrata, wake up and turn this way, turn toward the light.
And how can we be sure that we won't again turn away? Like, can we, or is it just...
Will you give up if you're not sure? If you don't get a guarantee, will you give up and not take it?
I don't know.
You don't know. Okay. Then Krishna says, Yadgatva nanivartante tadam. If you go, you won't come back. Mm. So if you trust Krishna's word on the subject, you're good to go.
Okay.
Yes.
Hare Krishna. When the living entity, conditioned living entity, serves Krishna indirectly through material energy, does Krishna feel some pleasure?
No. To serve, when we serve through the material energy, that doesn't give Krishna pleasure. It's not that when you're like smoking, drinking, woman hunting, meat eating, then Krishna's somehow getting some indirect pleasure because you're serving the senses which belong to his internal energy. No. That's the shadow. Krishna doesn't take pleasure in the shadow. He takes pleasure in the reality. Krishna doesn't take pleasure in Maya. He doesn't come to this material world to enjoy Maya. We're trying to, it means illusion. Krishna doesn't take pleasure in illusion. We take pleasure in illusion. Krishna takes pleasure in the reality. So, of course, for Krishna, in one sense, everything's real. We discussed that yesterday. Material nature is also real because it's part of Krishna. But Krishna takes pleasure in devotional service, not in the rebellious mentality of the living entity who wants to avoid devotional service. Even those who are absolutely determined to oppose Krishna, Tanaham Vishata Kruran Sangsareshan Radhaman Shipam Yadrasham Ashubhan Ashurishveviyonishu Apanam. What is that? You know what's the first? Asrim Yonim Apanam Buddha Janmani Janmani Mama Prapyaiva Kontiya Tato Yantyadamam Gatim. Those who are mischievous, demonic, envious, cruel. I put them down again and again into the lower species of life, and they never reach me. So that's not an expression of pleasure. That's not what you do when someone pleases you. So it's not, they're not giving pleasure to Krishna, they're avoiding. And we'll do anything but give pleasure to Krishna. So Krishna doesn't take pleasure. And also even those who are doing needless austerities, mam Jayadvaita Swami, those who are doing torturing the body, Krishna says they give pain to me also. It's not that Krishna takes pleasure when some asura is like Hiranyakashipu who's standing on his toes for 100 years and torturing himself. And Krishna says that mam Jayadvaita Swami, and I feel pain. The father feels pain to see his son suffering.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, the question was there, how we are margin energy, and what was the need of this margin energy. So what actually margin means, we can go both sides. So it is quite obvious because we are part parcel of Krishna. So we have free will, desire to serve or not desire to serve. So it is quite obvious if the living entities who doesn't want to serve, where they will go. So they will be put in the three modes and sent to this material world.
Yeah, and that all makes sense. But the question is, why should there be living entities who are of that marginal nature? That was the question.
Because free will is there, no? Because Krishna is.
That's
Krishna is.
You're answering the question by you're being circular here. The question is, why should there be living entities who have free will and can put themselves in that predicament? And you're saying, well, it's obvious because it's because they have free will.
No, because free will is because they're part parcel of Krishna. Krishna is freedom is there, so their son, they're part parcel also have freedom. The same freedom is there.
Yeah, I understand.
So when freedom is there, so they can serve, or if they desire to serve, or they don't desire to serve.
Right.
And when they don't desire to serve, then they come to this material world.
Yeah, that's a correct statement of the philosophy. I don't think it answers the question that was asked, but it is a correct understanding.
Jai Shri Ram. Actually, I have a question. I have heard that I'm Lord Sri Rama devotee. So, according to Sri Ramcharitmanas, it is said only Ram is the supreme personality in this universe, beyond the universe also. Beyond the universe also, there is one supreme personality, and that is Lord Sri Rama. Even once Sati asked to Shiva, let me know who is the God.
Who's the God?
God, exactly. Who is the supreme personality? And also she asked to Lord Shiva, who is your father? And he's answering, Lord Brahma is my father. Then she said, then who is the father of Lord Shiva Brahma? Then replying, Lord Shiva replied that Vishnu is the father of Lord Shiva Brahma. Then again she asked, then who is the father of Lord Shiva Vishnu? Then Shiva is asking, he's answering to Sati, only Sri Ram. My question is, according to me, I have seen in this near with this war happening around, if I'm following Lord Sri Rama, I'm saying Ram is the supreme personality. If another person that is following to Lord Shri Krishna, saying Krishna is the supreme personality. If next person who is following to Shiva, he's saying only Shiva is the supreme personality. Also, I have people told me.
Someone says Ganesh, and then we say, okay, he says Ganesh is the supreme personality.
Yeah,
so on.
So, if I'm talking about this ISKCON, ISKCON devotee says, three Krishna name, Ram name is equal to one Ram name.
Find the verse.
Three Ram's name is equal to Krishna one name. But according to Sri Ramcharitmanas, once Narad asked to Lord Sri Rama in Dandak 1, he said, if you are happy with me, I would like to ask you something for. Lord Sri Rama says, please, never think that I cannot give anything. Whatever you ask, can ask freely. Then he said, you have a number of names. And you have a number of names, incarnated so many times. But just this time, just give me one boon, Vardhan, that your Ram Nam should be the beyond all names. So why we are making, I'm really, sometimes it becomes difficult to understand why we are making differences with the names. If I'm saying Lord Sri Rama, if I'm saying Lord Sri Krishna, both are same. Yeah, but why we are making differences? Why these kind of things happening in our dharma?
Why
So exactly who's the supreme?
So who's the supreme? Why this difference of opinion about names and so on? Okay. First thing is that there's a difference between Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead, the supreme Purushottam, and the Devatas, Devi Devatas, Durga, Shiva, Ganesha, Surya, and so on and so on and so on. The Yastu Narayanam Devam Brahmarudradi Daivata Samatvayanaiva Bhiksheta Yapashandi Bhavedruvam. It's said in the Shastras that if anyone thinks that Brahmarudradi, the various gods, beginning with Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, are on the same level as Narayan, then he's an atheist. He's an atheist. Just if I were to say, I'm on the same level as Krishna, I'm on the same level as Ram, then I'm an atheist. Right? If I say, why is Modi special? I'm as good as Modi. I'm also the Prime Minister. Of course, I'm not even Indian, but if some Indian said that, you'd say, you're nuts. There's so many Indians, but there's one Indian who's the Prime Minister, and everybody else he may be a cabinet minister, he may be a member of parliament, or he may be an ordinary citizen, but he's not the Prime Minister. There's only one Prime Minister. So there's only one Supreme Personality of Godhead, and everyone else is his servant. So Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, Ganesh, Surya, Chandra, all the rest are in the servant category. And then the personality of Godhead is in the Parameshwar category. He's the supreme controller. So that's the beginning. It's just so that we don't have to deal with, I'm also God, you're also God, Shiva's also God, Ganesh is also God. So now we come to Ram, Vishnu, Krishna. So in the Brahma Samhita it said, Advaitam Achyutam Anadim Anantarupam. That the absolute truth is Advaita, one. Advaitam Achyutam Anadim Anantarupam, but he appears in various forms, unlimited forms. So Ram is also the same absolute truth. Krishna is also the same absolute truth. Narayan is also the same absolute truth. Nrsingadeva is the same absolute truth. The same personality of Godhead. Ram is Bhagavan, Krishna is Bhagavan, Narayan is Bhagavan, Vishnu is Bhagavan. They're all the same Advaita. They're the same person. Sometimes he appears as a cowherd boy, sometimes he appears as a king, sometimes he appears as half lion, half man, sometimes a tortoise, sometimes, we've seen the tortoise today, sometimes Varaha, Dev. So these are all the same Bhagavan. Just as one person appears in different roles, so the Lord appears in different roles.
Yeah, exactly. But when we're talking about the names...
So then when we're talking about names, in our ISKCON, it's not just that we have sort of like an ISKCON fan club that we're Krishna fans, so we say something, and then there's a Ram fan club over there, there's something else. We're going according to Shastra.
This is the next verse.
Rama Rama Rameti Rame 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 Manorame Sahasranama Bistulyam Rama Nama Varanane. Lord Shiva addressed his wife Durga. O Devi, I chant the holy name of Ram, 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 and thus enjoy this beautiful sound. This holy name of Ramchandra is equal to 1,000 holy names of Lord Vishnu. This is a verse from the Brihad Vishnu Sahasranam Stotra, Uttarakanda of the Padma Puran. So this is a Puranic statement. On the one side, there's no difference between Lord Ram and Lord Vishnu. On the other side, it's said that Lord Ram's name is equal to 1,000 names of Vishnu. Why is that said? Because Lord Ram manifests the opulence of Sri Bhagavan more than Vishnu. It's the same. He's the same Vishnu. The Ram Bhaktas are also Vaishnavas. The Nrsimha Bhaktas are also Vaishnavas. The Krishna Bhaktas are also Vaishnavas. We're worshipping the same person, but he's appearing in different ways. Sometimes he appears more fully, or manifests himself more fully. So therefore, in the Padma Puran, the 1,000 names of Vishnu are equal to only one name of Lord Ram. Then, Sahasranam Nam Punyanam Trir Avritya Tu Yat Palam Ekavritya Tu Krishnasya Namaikam Tat Prayachati. The pious results derived from chanting the 1,000 holy names of Vishnu 3 times can be attained by only one utterance of the holy name of Krishna. This verse is found in the Brahmanda Purana. So 3,000, so Lord Ram's name is equal to 1,000 names of Vishnu, and Krishna's name is equal to 3,000 names of Vishnu. So we're not speaking from, just sort of an ISKCON Krishna fan club point of view. This is Shastra. These are the statements from the Puranas.
All right, but as you said, one thing you said that Lord Shri Shiva is also a servant of Lord Shri Krishna. Mm-hmm. But when asked to Krishna, Krishna also said, and Lord Shri Rama also said, that who is not devotee of Lord Shri, Shiva, if who is not serving to Shiva, cannot comes to me. So people, when they say Lord Shiva is not actually God, he's not Bhagwan, he's just a God. But Lord Shri Rama also said that who is not becomes devotee of Lord Shiva cannot come up to
you have to, if you disrespect. Right. I'm sorry, go ahead, continue.
Yeah, all right, sorry. So I'm just trying to say, if we start reading all these things, like as you said, it's really sounds too good. But if you go according to Shiv Mahapuran, I have read all these things. In Shiv Mahapuran, it is saying only Lord Shiva is the Supreme Personality.
Yeah.
But when we go in Vishnu Puran, it is said only Lord Shiva Vishnu is the Supreme Personality. And so why these differences?
Why all these different contradictory statements?
Some person is not really much educated. Some person is illiterate, not so much, have knowledge. So that kind of person will be really fully confused.
That person?
Well, if I'm not educated, if I'm not able to understand these things,
then you'll be confused, right?
Exactly. So
yes.
Why these things?
So why is this there? Shiva Purana, Shiva is supreme, and Vishnu Purana, Vishnu is supreme. So it gets very confusing. It does. Therefore, the sages at Naimisharanya, Srila Jiva Goswami asks this question. He says there's so many different Puranas. There's a statement in Shastra that of the 18 Puranas, 6 are for people in the mode of goodness, 6 for people in the mode of passion, 6 for people in the mode of ignorance. So because the Shastras have to accommodate everyone. They have to give not accommodate, but give direction for everyone. Not that we just take care of the people in goodness, and if you're in passion and ignorance, well, we don't care about you. We'll give you something by which you can be elevated. So for the people in the lower modes of nature, there are Puranas to encourage them. Yes, you do this, and gradually you'll be elevated. Then on the platform of goodness, we don't find that, yes, worship Durga, we find that Vishnu tad paramam padam, Om tad Vishnu paramam padam sada parishanti surya. Now that's actually a Vedic statement. So, but it's confusing, isn't it? First of all, let's deal with your earlier statement that the Lord says, if you're worshiping me, but you're not worshiping Lord Shiva, I don't want anything to do with you. So that means Lord Shiva is very dear to Krishna.
Exactly.
And Lord Shiva is very dear to the Lord. So if we worship the Lord and we reject those who are dear to him, then that's not very pleasing. Vaishnavanam yata Shambhu. It said that Lord Shiva is the greatest devotee of Bhagavan. So we can't accept Lord Vishnu or Krishna or Ram and reject Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva has to be respected because he's so dear to Bhagavan. But then we don't want to make the mistake that because he's dear to Bhagavan, he is on the same level as Ram, as Krishna, as Vishnu. Almost. And it's stated in Shastra, almost on the same level, but he's not on the same level. So he's in a special position. He's not one of the ordinary living beings, but he's not in the Vishnu category, just below the Vishnu category. But then we come, why so many Shastras? Some saying this, some saying that. And Srila Jiva Goswami, a great philosopher in the line of Lord Chaitanya, he asks that same question. There's so many Shastras, what to do? And he says if we could find one Shastra, because some of the texts are corrupt, and some of the texts, as we were saying, are meant for people in the lower modes of nature. If we could find one text, then we would be set. So Srila Jiva Goswami identifies such a text as the Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Purana. In the Bhagavad Purana it said, Puri Purini Karmani Shotabhyani Avibhagasha Atasadotra Yadsaram Samudritya Manishaya Bruhi Bhajani Bhutanam Yenatma Suprasidati. There was a gathering of sages at Naimisharanya, and they were gathered to perform sacrifice and hear from Sutta Goswami. So they asked Sutta Goswami that there's so many Purini Karmani, there's so many different karmas, so many duties, so many pious activities. so many sacrifices, so many rituals. Shrotavyani vibhagasha. And so many shastras. Sometimes we hear you should do this, sometimes we hear you should do that, sometimes we hear karma yoga is best, sometimes we hear jnana yoga is the best, sometimes we hear bhakti yoga is the best, sometimes we hear you should be a Durga bhakta, sometimes we hear you should be. So there's so many scriptures, so many people saying so many things. Atas sarotra yat saram samudritya manishe. Please give us the essential instruction in an easily understandable way. Bruhi bhajani bhutana, for the benefit of all living beings. Yenatma suprasidati, so that everyone can be fully satisfied. So that's this Bhagavad Purana. ISKCON means that we're particularly taking advantage of this two books, Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. The Ramcharitamanas is a greatly respected work, but it's not part of the original Shastric canon. It comes later. It's derivative, we can say. Tulsidas was undoubtedly a great saint, but his work is, you can say, dependent on. Just like there may be in America great constitutional lawyers or great legal writers, but the Constitution is on its own level. Then there are so many writings from the Constitution. So Saint Tulsidas is in that category. He's a derivative, or he's deriving knowledge from the Shastras. All the acharyas, Ramanujacharya, Madhvacharya, Nimbarkacharya, Vishnu Swami Acharya, Shankaracharya, they all go to the Shastras. They all go to the Vedas, the Puranas, and Bhagavad Gita. So similarly, Tulsidas. In ISKCON, our approach is to take advantage of the Shastras themselves, and especially these two books, Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. So, and we, as you find, we're also quoting from other sources, but we don't make things up.
Actually, I have a lot of questions, but only last question I would like to ask, if you allow. According to Sanatana Dharma, it is said, if we call by our mouth someone, if we are calling someone as a mother, if I'm saying to somebody, Mataji, it means that according to Sanatana Dharma, it is believed if we say someone Mataji, it means that she becomes really mother of mine. Because if we think about the psychological process also says if we are calling names of anything which is on this planet, before calling a name of particular things, all the energy or perceptions creates according to that. All the images already created in my mind. My question is, if I'm saying to someone as Mataji, for me, all the emotions, perceptions, everything becomes, as what I believe that she's my mother, just as a mother. After saying Mataji, maybe my questions will not be appropriate, but I'm sorry, I'm helpless. I would like to ask these things. If I'm saying to someone as Mataji, and every day, same time I'm saying Dandavat Pranam. Dandavat means what? I'm just lying down and touching her feet. If I'm saying by mouth, that's equal. Later on, after some months or some year, we are getting married with the same person.
Yes.
Is it not sin?
I thought that's where you were headed with that question. Therefore, the best thing is to stay brahmachari. Then we don't have these contradictions.
Okay. I have seen there is an incidence of Lord Shiva and Sati. He said that I cannot, once Sati, she becomes Sita Mata for a moment. just for a moment, she becomes Sita. When Lord Shiva came to know that she become, for a moment, she becomes as Sita, what he said?
I'm sorry. Where's this and what's
this? If you go through the Shiva Mahapuran, there is this incident happen once.
in Shiva Mahapuran.
Yeah. So what Lord Shiva said, he said, "Ehitan sati bhet apnahi." What he's saying, with this body, I cannot do love anymore, because you become Sita, and Sita, I consider her as my mother.
Mm-hmm.
If I love you anymore, my bhakti and dharma will be spoiled. So at the same time, he said that not anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So my question is, what we are doing, is it not sin?
Good question.
Is it not sin? That's why I have many questions. Many times people said that come and join this con. I respect fully from my bottom of my heart. But few things are there.
For the same, ISKCON typically Mataji, and in other cultures, Bahenji. So sister also. Whether you say Mataji, Bahenji.
Same time we are saying Dandavat Pranam.
I understand, but I'm just, first this point is there. It's not just ISKCON. We may say Mataji, and this is also there in other places. In some areas of India, they'll say Mataji. Then other areas, Bahenji. And yet later, Bahenji becomes his wife. So one is mother, the other is sister, who marries his sister. So these, but yet, ISKCON is also not inventing this. Chanakya Pandit says, Matravat Paradareshu. Paradara, the wife of somebody else, Matravat becomes like our mother. Some of the Dravyalostreshu, what is that? Padadravyeshu lostravat, Atmavat sarvabhuteshu ya pandita, ya pashyati sapandita. So, from what I understand, as a poor Videshi, these things are meant to indicate respect. Because the tendency is, as soon as I see any woman, I think, oh, I could enjoy with her. She looks so nice. She speaks so nicely. She's this, she's that. Mind starts going, woo, 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 woo. And this is the disease of material life. Ishroham maham bhogi. Let me enjoy. So one looks upon women and thinks, here's someone for my enjoyment. This is the degraded mentality. So therefore the training is given from the childhood that don't see women that way. See every woman like your mother. That means respectful. Now there's a whole, the society is all in conflict because women are all disrespected. Men are just thinking that here's something for my enjoyment, here's another object for my enjoyment. But the training was so nice. The brahmacharis would go begging from door to door, Mataji, can you give little atta, can you give some rice? They would go begging. And the village ladies, they are like the mothers of the little boys. Yes, they'll give something. So in that way, he's trained from the beginning of his life to see women with respect, not with a jumping mind, let me enjoy. And he's got a circus going on in his mind. So these things are for that. Even Bahenji, which is not in our ISKCON culture, but it means that to see with respect. And then yes, it becomes what shall we say, contradictory. That the same person that he's addressing as mother and sister, now he's proposing marriage to. That's one of those things in culture that will be contradictory.
Yeah, there is one thing also, only 1 minute.
Except in my philosophy where everyone stays brahmachari and you escape all these contradictions.
All right. In Ramcharitmanas, when Lord Sri Rama kills to Bali, he said, "You have killed me as a hunter." Then Lord Sri Rama replying, he said, "Anuj Badhu Bhagini Sutanari Sunushat Kanya Samyachari Inahi Kudrishti Bilokahi Joi Tahe Bade Kushpapna." He's saying, listen, you stupid person. Wife of a brother, our own sister, and the daughter of someone else. These are just like a mother. There is also one, incident when there is a Laukush Kant in Ramcharitmanas.
Where there's?
Laukush Kant, Laukush, sons of Lord Sri Rama. There is the story of horse. So I'm just coming to the point. When Vibhishan came to Lavakush just for war, that just give our horse, while replying love, love is saying, "You're not worthy of standing in front of me. You do not deserve this. Because many times you called to Mandodari as your Mataji. Many times you touched her feet. And later what you did marry with that woman. You are a sinner. You're not worthy of standing in front of me. Just go from here." And he came back. He's calling sinner. So I think when I see these things around me, I feel like that we are wandering somewhere else.
So you should really join my party.
Maybe, yeah. But when I think about these things, as I told that I'm Lord Sri Rama devotee for many years, I have not changed my attire so far, because Lord Sri Rama says, "Nirmal manjan so mohi pava, mohi kaparchal chitrana bhava, and nirmal hoy jiv mohi jabahi, janma koti ek nasai tabhi." He is saying, if anyone is there who wants to attend me, there is one condition: your heart should be pure, not need to change this heart and mind. Your eyes, in that everything is included. So he's saying, if you want to attend me, there is one condition: you need not to change the attire and everything. But I respect of all.
There's two things here. The point is, of course, that just changing your dress doesn't mean now you've become a pure devotee of Ram. It requires a change of heart. The Hanuman is not dressing like a brahmachari, but it's his heart. But that doesn't mean that the student of the spiritual master shouldn't accept the dress of a student.
Yeah.
The point is not to change the dress, the point is to change the heart.
Heart. Yeah.
But just like here in India, anyone who goes to a proper school, they wear the school dress, isn't it? In America, anyway, we won't talk about America, but here in India, and even in America, in the really good schools, when you go to the school, you have to wear the school dress. Now, the purpose of going to the school is not to get you to dress a certain way. The purpose is to make you an educated person. But as part of your training, you're given a certain dress to wear.
Okay, but if I'm wearing...
And then I'm not arguing that you should change your dress, I'm just explaining that it's not that these boys have changed their dress and so they're going against something that Ram said. Their purpose is to change the heart. That's why they're chanting Hare Krishna, that's why they're sitting in the class, because the purpose is to change the heart. But because they've taken up the life of students, so they're dressing as students. That's nothing wrong there.
Thank you so much. All right. Hare Krishna.
Okay, this is going to be, and thank you for your questions. They're very good. Thank you. The conclusion is that Ram and Krishna are the same person. They're just seen in different aspects. Not that Advaita is not that there's somebody called Ram and someone else called Krishna. Krishna and Ram are the same person. But when he manifests in one feature, he's called Ram. When he manifests in another feature, he's called Krishna. Manifests in another feature. The same person. Of course, there's more to that story, but that'll do for now. You have a question? Can it wait till tomorrow? May not be relevant tomorrow. Okay, we will extend. Tell us. Wait 1 second, and we'll give you a microphone, and we'll see what your question's about.
I feel silly taking longer to ask this question.
First, if you really don't want to feel silly, then hold your microphone close to your mouth.
Okay. Well, his question about the Mataji situation, many people cannot renounce married life. How serious is this offense of marrying somebody that you called Mataji one time?
As far as I can see, it's not an offense.
Okay.
That is to say, it's one of those contradictions built into the culture.
Right. But it just seems kind of it's not very serious.
As far as I know, there's no Shastric statement about you're going to hell if you call someone Mataji. But it's culturally contradictory.
Yeah, for sure. I could also see. Oh, sorry.
Just as Mataji or Behenji, they call someone sister and then marry her. What is that? But it means different contexts. The purpose is that she's not my wife. I should speak with her respectfully, if at all. If we don't speak, then there's no problem. But naturally, they'll be speaking. So when they're speaking, then it should be with respect. Not that I'm looking at everyone as a potential object of marriage or enjoyment, but respectfully. That's the purpose. We have to see not just what is the name, because there's also, you can say that Mataji, you piece of dirt. I mean,
oh my God.
When it's spoken like that with a sneering, and it's the same word, but it doesn't have the same import. So the point is that it's meant to show respect. That's the point. That's the point. And to keep the mind pure. So then, different circumstances change. Someone wants to marry, then Mataji is not appropriate.
Devi.
Or Behenji. I think we're done because now one leads to another.
Isn't it that Prabhupada didn't introduce Mataji? He said everyone's Prabhu, and the Mataji thing came later from kind of Indian influence?
The simple answer to your question is no. You're asking a historical question, isn't it, that Prabhupada didn't introduce Mataji, that it came from Indian influence later. Prabhupada told everyone to address everyone as Prabhu. No, that's not historically true. Nobody in ISKCON, first of all, anyway, no, it came from Prabhupada. He's the one. If you do a database search, you'll find that Prabhupada is recommending this. It's not coming from some, even the general Indian culture, especially North Indian culture, more often you find Behenji, right? You don't find, Bengal you find Mataji more. But in North India it's more Behenji, sister. So that's, just by way of argument, if we were going to pick something up, we probably would have picked that up. But that's not how it happened. It's not that we picked something up. No, Prabhupada introduced it. And Machavat Paradareshu, Prabhupada quoted a lot. He told how his son I think, went to see a movie or something, and he was seeing the movie. He said, "There's another mother, there's another mother, there's another mother," because he was trained like that. Prabhupada gave that. And he said, any unknown woman you should address that way. So that came from Prabhupada. The idea that everyone should be addressed as Prabhu seemed to be foreign to Prabhupada's way of doing things. I know there's about 3 or 4 or 5 letters where Prabhupada refers to women as Prabhu. They're all written within a very short space of time. They all have the same typist's initials. So my guess is that that's a secretarial artifact, because before then and after then, there are no letters where Prabhupada's talking about Malati Prabhu or Rukmini Prabhu or Lalita Prabhu or any other Jamuna Prabhu. It's all in these few letters in a short space of time from the same typist. That's historically verifiable. In a database search I did, I found all these, Karanda Prabhu and Brahmananda Prabhu. I even found a Jayadvaita Prabhu. So many places where Prabhupada's, this man Prabhu, this man Prabhu. And when I searched for women's names, only those five or so letters come up. So it doesn't seem to have been Prabhupada's standard mode of reference to refer to the ladies as Prabhu.
How would he address the women?
By name. Govindasi, Jamuna, this one just by their name. I never heard, Govindasi Prabhu or any other Vishaka Prabhu.
How would the man address?
The same way. Though, how would he address the men?
How the men address the women?
In the beginning of ISKCON there was Prabhu. Yeah, the men would address the ladies as Prabhu. But a lot of things went on in the beginning of ISKCON. Devotees would offer obeisances to one another by bowing down and saying Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutaya Srimate Bhaktivedanta, People didn't know a whole heck of a lot. And there's something odd about, just linguistically odd about Radharani Prabhu, or Lakshmi Prabhu. It's like saying Mr. Radharani or Mr. Lakshmi. It's strange. There are respectful terms. Devi is respectful. Sadhvi we sometimes see, but it's linguistically and culturally odd to see a woman's name with Prabhu, just as it would be to see it with Mr. The underlying issue, and we are going beyond time, thank you all very much. The underlying point is that women should be respected. And I think your historical searchers who've come up with this idea that Prabhu was the real thing. And then by some influence, it became something else. I don't think they're right, but they would be right if they said that there were sort of waves of disrespect for women that were not originally there. In Srila Prabhupada's early time, when he was personally present, by example and by his dealings, he showed that the women should be dealt with very nicely. And then at a somewhat later period, the gung-ho brahmacharis or sannyasis or whatever became more, antagonistic or scared or what have you, and were less cultured in the way that they dealt with women and less respectful. So that wasn't good. And to the extent that it's, that a man thinks, I'm superior because I'm a man, and he doesn't respect the women. So this is a cultural defect. And in part it comes from being conditioned souls, and in part it comes from a lack of cultural training. We're recruiting people from America and Russia and England and Germany and France and what have you. And they're not usually brought up knowing how to be respectful. Even to their own mothers, Atma Mata, Guru Patni, Brahmani Raja Patnika. They don't know how to respect any mother, not Mother Earth, not Mother Cow, not not the wife of the Guru, not the Queen, just joke about the Queen, not their own mother even. I found it rather shocking to hear young people calling their mothers and fathers by first name. Where I grew up, that wasn't possible. I never called my mother by her first name, ever. Even as a grown-up, I never called her by her first name. But now it's very common. You hear that, and it's like, all right, times have changed or whatever. But in Indian culture also, no boy can address his mother by her first name. It's like, what planet did you grow up in? And even a low-class Indian boy can't do that. Whereas the Westerners, they have all sorts of, they don't even know how to respect their own mothers, what to speak of any other women. So I gave a whole a seminar, offering of respect in Vedic culture. The theme of which is that we really need to catch up. Of course, in India now, everything is also deteriorating. You might have to give a course to the Indian boys soon on why they shouldn't call their mothers by their first name. The Indian boys also are gradually disrespecting certainly other women. Bollywood culture takes over and overshadows the Vedic culture, and then every girl is, a potential filmy heartthrob. So gradually the Vedic culture is diminishing even in India. But still it's there. But in the West it's not very much there, although in some cultures more than others. So that training needs to be there. What is respect in Vedic culture? Respect for the parents, such a big thing. Respect for elders. The elder brother is like an authority in Indian family life. In America, it's just, I'll beat you up. Younger or older doesn't mean anything. But in Indian culture, we defer to the elder brother. The king is respected. So much respect. The guru is respected. Brahmins are respected. Teachers are respected. That's culture. Not only Indian culture. That's any culture worth its name. The biblical culture: honor thy father and thy mother, for crying out loud. That's culture. But because we've become uncultured, then these things are there, that women are disrespected, other people are disrespected, teachers are disrespected, sannyasis are disrespected, parents are disrespected. Everyone under the sun is disrespected because I'm the most important person in the universe and everybody else should just get out of my way. That's the culture. That shows that you're assertive and that you have confidence in yourself. It's nuts. So without resorting to, I would suggest, without resorting to invented histories or odd cultural inventions as far as Prabhus and so on, we need to learn to properly respect all the devotees, everyone, devotee or non-devotee, amanina, amanadena, kirtaniya sadahari. And then there's different ways of respecting different people. There are respectful names for Brahmins. Panditji is a respectful name for a Brahmin. Then for Kshatriya, there's a respectful term for Vaishya. Thakur for the Kshatriyas, Sethji for the Vaishyas, and for the Shudra Mahajan. Everybody is respected. So I think the seminar may be somewhere online. I don't know if it is. It is. ISKCON Desire Tree, offering of respect in Vedic culture, recommended to all your friends and antagonists. And given that we're 10 minutes over time, my fault, shall we stop here? Okay. And are you doing kirtan, Devashi? Okay.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Jai Om Vishnupad Purnamon Supari Brajak Charja Stotra Sri Srimad A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai Nama Charja Sridhar Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Sikaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shama Kun Radha Kunigiri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadip Dham Ki Jai Jagannath Puri Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Jamana Mai Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare.
And we'll carry on again tomorrow, same place and time. If anyone hasn't yet obtained a copy of my book and wants to, they are here. And be sure to get some Mahaprasadam on the way out. Thank you again. Hare Krishna.